Um, to be honest, it's quite incredulous that someone of my background is standing here and speaking to you as an apparently successful author. And there are various reasons for this, if I may just enumerate them. The first reason is that I wasn't born right for a career in English language publishing in India. Why is that? Well, I don't come from an upper class family. I don't have any connections with Lutyens, Delhi. All of us know how important that is. And thirdly, Thirdly, that, in terms of upbringing, well, I didn't study in the UK, which is apparently one of the key conditions till 5-10 years ago to be published in the English language in India. The second reason would be that my higher education was not right for the English language publishing industry in India. I graduated in mathematics, and then I did an MBA from IIM Calcutta, and then I was a banker. There are too many bankers in the world, on this stage as well. And I was told that apparently mathematics in an MBA is not that bad in education, perhaps not that bad for banking, but for the English language publishing industry, it's not a good kind of education to get. MBAs are kind of thought of as negative. We are considered to be upwardly mobile newbies with very little connection to anything cultural. And the third reason why I shouldn't have been a successful author is that I had actually no experience in writing. I had written absolutely no fiction in my life before The Immortals of Melua, not even a short story in school. Absolutely nothing. I'd written some poetry in college. They were terrible. Everyone hated it. The only one who liked my poems in college was my wife, who's out here, who at that time was my girlfriend. One of the reasons I loved her was that she didn't laugh at my poems. Okay, so I didn't have the right background, I didn't have the right education, and I didn't have the right experience either. And yet, I somehow became an allegedly successful author. I can try and claim credit myself for the success, but honestly that would be a lie. I think the credit goes to Lord Shiva because he ensured that I was there in the right place at the right time. There is a mood of rebellion in India today. There is a mood where an outsider banging on the gates is actually supported, even if he is not perfect. It doesn't matter if he is not perfect. If he is an outsider, if he is anti-elite, he is supported. And I happen to be that lucky outsider who happened to write a book on the original outsider god, the god of the rebels, the anti-elite god, Lord Shiva. So actually, I am a beneficiary of this mood of rebellion that exists in India today. So I should be supporting it, right? I should say, yes, go on, be rebellious, man, and be a rebel without a pause. But I am going to actually say something slightly different out here. I'm going to say maybe we need to tone down the rebelliousness a little bit. Maybe we need to practice the keep calm thing. I know we are Indians, we don't do the keep calm thing, but maybe we should try and practice the keep calm thing. Why is that? Why am I suggesting that? It's not because I think anger is not useful. Anger is actually very good at times, right? But if we don't maintain a sense of calm, at times we lose focus on the real issues. And sometimes we can dissipate our anger on issues where we should not be getting so angry. Let me try and explain this by talking about 3 key issues which animate us today, in today's India. The first issue is corruption. We've already spoken a fair bit about it. Now there are people who say that apparently we as a civilization, we are inherently corrupt because we even try to bribe our God, in order to receive a blessing from him. So we are basically a corrupt culture, so nothing can be done about us, right? And there's a lot of anger about this issue in India. And why can't we be an honest country? The point I'd like to make is actually we are not that different. Every country in the world has been through a phase of massive and all-pervasive corruption. The UK in the 18th and 19th century, the US in the late 19th and early 20th century, China right now, right? And interestingly, this phase of massive corruption usually has accompanied their first phase of massive economic growth. I'm not saying there's a connection, I'm just saying it's interesting, right? All these countries have managed to tackle corruption. All these countries have managed to conquer corruption to a reasonable level. China is still on the journey, but I think they're further than we are, which means that we will do it as well. It's a phase. It's a phase perhaps of the first fast growth, economic growth that every country kind of goes through, right? And what I'm trying to suggest is that if we attack this issue with too much anger, with a desire for mob justice, we may actually end up harming our own country. Let me explain this. I'm not denying that attacking corruption is important. But I'm sure all of us will agree, if we think with a calm head, having faster economic growth is even more important. Making sure that we generate enough jobs for the army of youth, 13 million youth, which are joining the workforce every year. If we don't do that, our demographic dividend will very quickly turn into a demographic curse. And we will have violence and chaos everywhere. So we must attack corruption. Yes, we must, but not with a sense of mob justice. There's a second issue that I want to speak about on this sense of where we can try and control our anger and keep a sense of calm, which is the issue of religious violence. This is an issue which troubles all of us. It's troubled me as well. I turned into an atheist in the early 90s because of the religious violence that I saw. Terms like genocide are actually thrown about quite carelessly, I think, in India. There have been, since when we became a republic, around 50 major religious riots in India. If we step back and look at the numbers of those 50 major riots, 5 were really terrible. More than 1,000 people died in those 5 riots. Can our system be improved to ensure that these riots don't happen? Of course it must. Right? Can our system be improved that in those cases where these riots happen, the perpetrators are quickly brought to justice? Yes, those improvements must take place. But if we step back and think a little calmly, are any of these 50 major religious riots which took place in the last 60 years, are any of them genocides where millions and maybe even lakhs have been killed? Frankly, no. If we step back and get a sense of perspective and see the causes of unnatural deaths in India, religious violence is actually a very minuscule portion. So I want to submit that we should try and tackle this issue. But is this deserving of the levels of anger that we as a country have? Perhaps not. Religious differences do occur in India. I submit that actually it's a problem of the human species and that all of us need to work upon. But I don't think India is at a stage where we will destroy ourselves in an orgy of religious violence. We've crossed that bridge. And that is one of the things that's actually good about us as a country. There is a third issue which I want to speak about, where I want to suggest we should not practice the keep calm thing, where we should be angry. If you want to search for a genocide in India today, it's happening in this place. It's happening with women in India. In the last 20 years, there have been 10 million female fetuses which have been illegally aborted, which means 10 million girls have been killed in the womb in the last 20 years. This is a genocide, and we are simply not angry enough about it. Excuse me. It's not an excuse that China is far worse than us. That's a ridiculous excuse, right? And I think we can learn from our neighbor, Bangladesh, on this issue. Bangladesh has had amongst the fastest improvement in social indicators in the history of humanity, right up there with the Meiji Restoration era Japan. And they've done this while still being abysmally poor. What is the secret of their success? It's the empowerment of women. That's the magic pill. That's what they've actually got right. Repeated surveys in developing countries have shown that if you give money in the hands of women rather than men, it leads to better social outcomes. Women tend to spend that money in sensible things like better nutrition for the family or better education for the children, rather than alcohol consumption or some extravagant wedding, right? Which means that if we empower our women, we are actually building a better society. Now, in our present mood of anger and rebellion, we like to blame the government for this problem. We like to expect that they will come and somehow solve this women's oppression problem for us. Look, frankly, if our government can just build roads and infrastructure and keep our fiscal deficit under control, that itself will be a miracle. They're not going to be able to solve this problem. This is not a police problem. This is not a governmental problem. This is a societal problem. All of us have to fight for it ourselves in our own little corners of the world, which means that if at home your father is not treating your mother fairly, you need to rebel. Which means that at home, if your wife is not being treated well by your mother, you need to stand up for her, and your wife, that is, okay? You need to stand up for her. Which means that at home, if your household help is not educating her daughter, you need to help her on this. That how do you get her daughter educated? You need to fight this issue in every small corner of your own life, and not just within your home, even within the confines of your building, everywhere. All of us have to fight this issue. That's the only way we will change. This is an issue that we must get angry about. Our scriptures, our ancient scriptures say that the gods abandon the land where women are not respected. So my submission to you is that it's your patriotic duty to fight for women. Thank you. Okay, you're a woman. I'm a rebel, okay? I'm naturally a rebel. But one of the things that I've learned over my life, over many experiences, is that sometimes it's useful to keep a calm head so that you can find what are the issues that you should direct your rebelliousness and anger towards. Sometimes the keep calm thing is not such a bad idea. Thank you.